In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about getting started with Git and GitHub as well as GitHub Classroom, all of which are essential to handing in assignments in the class. So first off, what is GitHub? GitHub is a file management system known as a source code repository. Okay, basically, it's a place for you to put your code where it can be shared by other people in the same team or just by yourself. And the nice thing about it is it allows you to keep history of your code as well as do things such as branch off that history so you can make changes without affecting the original. GitHub, that's Git. GitHub is a storage site for your repositories. A collection of files is called a repository. And GitHub Classroom is a tool that allows us to use GitHub Classroom in a more classroom-oriented settings with assignments and that sort of thing. All of your assignments will be handed in using GitHub and GitHub Classroom. What are our steps to do this? First, we've got to create a GitHub account. Then we're going to have to set up an SSH private or public key pair because that's required. Then we're going to have to associate the key with your account. And that's before we even get started. So this is going to be the first step. So, step one, creating your GitHub account. Now, some of these screens may be a little different just because GitHub changes its background. So, we go to GitHub, and we'll click Sign Up right here. If you are, basically it'll say, let's begin. Enter your email. Use your Harper email, please. Even if you already have a GitHub account, please try creating one using your Harper email. Okay, and it'll ask you for a password, and it'll now pass you through to create a username. Please make your username understandable to me so I can relate it to your name. Okay. Then whether or not you want to receive product information is up to you. Almost done. And so now here you'll have your GitHub account. You can say just me and the student. You can pick all or none of these, continue on. And because you're a student, you can sign up for the GitHub student program, which is actually pretty cool. It gives you a lot of stuff for free. Once you get past that and log in, you'll see this as your GitHub control screen. Okay. And now we'll step on to creating our first repository. Okay. First, to create a repository, we're going to click on Repositories and click New. From there, it will ask you a couple questions. You give it its name and you hit Create, and it'll give you your first repository. Now, once we create our first repository, the next step is to get it onto our local machine. To do that, we will have to clone it. Okay, so go to your command line, and you'll have to install the Git client, which I'll make sure you have directions for. And you say Git clone, and then the name of the repository, which you can get from the actual repository itself. Okay. Then what should happen is it should copy the files, but it's not going to let you do it. It's going to say because it no longer supports password authentication, you now have to use a public-private key pair. And so in order to get it to work, we're going to have to get that set up and configured. Let's say we're going to sign up. And it'll tell me, welcome to GitHub. All right, there we go. Okay, so we're going to hit continue now. Create a password. Oops. Work. Oh, that'll be my user. There we go. CAPTCHA. I'll create our account. And there we go. We successfully got into GitHub. Okay. So now I'm going to ignore these feeds and come right over here and say create repository. All right, we'll call it first repository. All right, and we'll make it private so no one can see it. We'll add a README so there's something in there, and then we'll click create and create our very first repository. All right, here we go. Now it has a file in it. So to get to the code, we're going to come over here and copy that that URL. Then what we'll do next is we will create a command line. It's a git clone. But we don't have Git on our machine yet, so let's fix that. That could have been bad. Let's get our downloads here. And I'm using Windows, so we'll use Windows file. So next. Set up. Click. And once that's done, we'll go ahead and install all this fun stuff. Here. Let's try again. And here, it will ask you to sign in. By doing that, it actually will work. Now that's a new feature. It used to force you to get your own key, but now it has been changed to allow you to, it'll do it for you. So now, if we go into my first repository, it shows you the file just like in the repository. From here, if we go to the command line, let's create a file. We can use echo. Say this is a test, it'll put in the text file. Right. So now what we're going to say is git add, period. What that'll do is add all the files into Git for staging. It doesn't actually commit them. Right? So then what we're going to do is say git commit -m, and we have to give it a comment. We'll say initial commit. So we stage, then we commit. Okay? And it'll give us all this information saying it was committed, one file changed, and now it's in there. Now the one thing is here, that doesn't mean it's been saved remotely. Okay, so now what we're going to do is git push. And what push will do is that will push it up onto the internet where it's been stored in your GitHub repository. Okay, and you'll get this message saying it was all done. Then we can go back here to our repository and you'll see that the file is now in there. You might have to refresh it. Okay. And so that gets us done so far. The next step will be setting up GitHub Classroom. And that's how you'll actually get around to handing in your assignment. Now we're going to talk about using GitHub Classroom. So if you go into Blackboard, you'll see under the assignments, there's a link for each one. click on the link, copy it in here into your browser, hit enter, all right, and it'll take you to things where it says accept the assignment. This is after you give it, it'll ask you also for permission. Say accept this assignment. It's going to go bang around and say you're configuring a repository. It's going to build a repository that has the files you need in. This can take a few minutes. Once you get it done, click on it, and that'll take you to the repository, in which you'll find the instructions for the assignment. So, how do you get started working on it? Click on Code, copy the repository, come back out to the command line, and we'll say, just like before, git clone. And now, if we can see that we have a repository called, it's rather long-winded, but assignment 15. I'm lazy, so I'm going to cut and paste it. So now, you come in here and you do your work. All right, so we'll create a new file. All right, and we'll say this is test. Okay. And then we'll make sure it's here. And we'll say git add grid. And then git commit -m. First commit. You'll have to give it your email for the first time. So you can say git config global user email. Alright, and now let's try committing again. And our commit is done. Finally, I'm going to show you how to hand in your assignment, and then I'll walk through the whole process. So, in order to hand in your assignment, you must follow this workflow. If not, the chances of you getting a 0 increase greatly. So, first, once we've created the repository and accepted the assignment, we're going to come over here, I'm going to click on Code, and we're going to copy this repository string here. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to clone it. This is as you start your assignment. All right, we're going to say git clone that repository URL, and then you might want to give it a short path so you're not typing some bizarre URL. And now you need to edit your code in this directory however you see fit. When you are done editing your code and ready to hand things in, and remember this is the final hand-in, you commit your changes to Git by saying git add period, which will add all the change files to your staging area. Then you'll say git commit -m, you almost have that, and put some note in your message, final submission, whatever. We're going to always tag our changes. You have to do this exactly as shown. You'll say git tag submitted. If you spell that any other way, my program won't pick it up. Okay? Now we're going to finally push our changes to GitHub. Say git push, 2 dashes. Notice there's no space between them, even though it kind of looks like there is here. And then the word tags, no space between that either. That'll push it up to the server, and that's that. That will show you completing your assignment. Now, let's walk through the whole process. So once you get your assignment link from Blackbird, you'll click on it. It'll bring you to something like this. Click Accept Assignment, and it'll say it's creating your repository. Hit F5 when it's done. When it's done, click on the actual repository and go to it. Okay, from here we make sure we're on the Code tab. Here we're going to click on this, and we're going to copy this URL. Then what we're going to do is open a command window. If you're using Linux, you'll just use the terminal. And if you use Mac, you'll also open a terminal window. So here we have this. So now what we're going to do, is we are going to clone our repository. And the way we do that is simply by saying git clone and giving it the name of the URL of the repository. And we're going to give it a short name because I don't want to type all that when I change directories. So we'll say bank project. And it'll go and bang around. It'll grab all your files. You see CD bank project. And here you'll see all the files from the repository. Now here is where we will add our own. So let's create a new file. Here we're going to do this. And I'll put some garbage in there. Who cares? All right. Now if we see it, we can see our file. Now let's assume you're done and ready to hand in everything. So what we'll say is git add period. That'll add all our changes. Now we're going to commit them to our repository. -m, because you always got to have a message. All right, and it'll bang around there. Now we will say git tag to tag our item, and we'll say submitted. And it'll finish that. And finally, we're going to push things back. We'll say git push tags. Don't forget the dash tags. All right. And if you want to make sure you get it right, come back to your repository here. All right. Look at your tag. Submitted. Okay. And if we go back to our code here, now here we'll feel the see the test.txt file. And that's about all there is to it to submitting your assignments.